Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thanks for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we are doing the 2024 mid-year top 10s, and this is going to be on the 147-pound welterweight division. Before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel, I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So, the welterweights, it's funny, if you just watched the junior welterweight division, man, that one took a minute. So much going on at junior welter. Well, one division up, and it's just, this one should be a breeze video because there's really not that much going on at welterweight. I mean, there's stuff going on, don't get me wrong, but it's just not as much, and it's a shame because there's a lot of talent here. But let's run through it and see what's going on at the midway point of the 147-pound welterweight division and go from there. We start with the guys that dropped out, and there's only one. It's Keith Thurman, the former unified champion. He previously was number 4, but man, he was hanging on by a thread after not fighting for almost 2 years coming into the year. And I still let him stay in my top 10, but there's been nothing the first half of the year. Nothing at all saying that he's going to fight, when he's going to fight, who he's going to fight against. There's just been nothing. So I'm taking him out of my top 10, and unless he comes back before the end of the year, he will officially drop out by then. Okay, so starting off my number 10 welterweight at the halfway point is the former, it's current contender Giovanni Santillan. Santillan was number 7 coming into the year. He was undefeated. He got an opportunity to fight for the vacant WBO interim title, and he took on undefeated but little known Brian Norman Jr. and got his ass beat in that fight. Santillan was in it. He was competitive. I don't want to say it was completely one-sided, but Norman just had a work rate on him. He was beating him to the punch, outworked him, and then brutally knocked him out. And so his trajectory that started last year with his major upset of Alexis Rocha just got turned on itself. He's still the WBO's number 8 contender, but he's going to have to start over now and get back to it. Not sure he's going to hold on to a top 10 spot, but we'll see what he does in the second half of the year, if anything, following that tough knockout loss. Number 9, moving up one spot from number 10, is former world title challenger Abel Ramos. His highest ranking is WBC's number 7. He's got one win this year. He stayed busy and got a knockout victory. But other than that, I haven't heard anything on what he's doing next. I'm hoping we hear something. I'm hoping he gets some kind of opportunity in the second half of the year. I like Abel Ramos, and he brings, he is a tough guy and a guy that people should want to try to build themselves off of. But we'll see. We'll see if anybody gives him an opportunity at anything this year. Next at number 8 is the former WBA champion Yordenis Ugas. He moves up one spot from number 9. Really not because he did anything big, just not a lot of movement. Ugas still has a solid resume, but he has not fought since that loss to Mario Barrios in September of last year. He's got back-to-back losses now, dating back to April of 2022. So I'm hoping he comes back before the end of the year and does something, because he's really gonna drop fast if movement starts to happen and guys start to make plays in welterweight, and also his inactivity is gonna kill him. So we'll see what he decides to do and if he's coming back in the second half of the year. He's not ranked by any governing body though right now, so gonna be interesting to see what happens with Ugas. Next at number 7, moving up one spot from number 8, is undefeated contender Cody Crowley. Crowley's still the IBF's number 3 contender, but he blew a major opportunity. He failed an eye exam when he had the IBF title shot locked up for this weekend, actually, July 13th against Jerron Boutanis. Tough deal for him. I feel really bad for Crowley. I'm hoping he gets it figured out and he can get back into the mix before the end of the year, potentially fight Boots before the end of the year. but we'll see what happens going forward. Next at number 6 is undefeated, newly crowned WBO interim champion Brian Norman Jr. He wasn't ranked coming into the year. He got a major opportunity to fight for the vacant interim title against undefeated Giovanni Santillan, but he came in a heavy underdog coming into that fight. Nobody thought he was going to win, and he completely outworked Giovanni Santillan. It was a competitive fight, but he broke down Santillan and then brutally knocked him out in the 10th round to capture the vacant WBO interim title. Big time win right there, biggest of his career, and now he's basically the WBO champion, de facto champion, as long as Terrence Crawford wins the 154-pound title on August 3rd. He's going to vacate this belt, and Brian Norman will be upgraded to full champion. I believe that's going to happen. I think Crawford beats Madrimov and becomes the the interim champion at 154, and then vacates this belt at 147, and that will allow Norman to become the new champion. And there's been talks that Teofimo Lopez, who was already the super champion, could move up and challenge him at 147, but the way Lopez has looked at 140, not sure he wants that smoke against Brian Norman, who's not a big name. But Norman, if he is a strap holder in this second half of the year, that's just going to create opportunities for him, and that's a big deal. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does in the second half of the year. Next at number 5, moving up one spot from number 6, is the undefeated reigning WBA regular champion Imantas Stanionis. Stanionis returned after an over 2-year layoff to take on little-known Gabriel Maestre on the Canelo Munguia undercard. He got a hard-fought but convincing 12-round unanimous decision win over Maestre and retained his regular belt. Now, Terrence Crawford, as I just said, is moving up to 154 in his next bout and challenging for the WBA title there. If he's victorious, he's likely giving up his welterweight crown, and then Stanionis will be your lone WBA welterweight champ. Now, obviously, Stanionis wants to unify belts with Mario Barrios next, but Barrios could be making an optional defense against the legend Manny Pacquiao, who that's been rumored to take place in the fall. If that happens, it's gonna take away a unification with Stanionis. But I think Stanionis, once he's the full champion, will make even an optional defense, even if it's against like Cody Crowley or Abel Ramos. I think he'll fight somebody and stay active and get a win and push forward towards hopefully a unification in the second half of the year. But a unification could still happen for Stanionis in the second half of the year. But irregardless, I believe he's going to be the next WBA welterweight champion of the world, sole welterweight champion. So we'll see. Next at number 4, moving up one spot from number 5, is the newly upgraded WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios. Barrios entered the year as the interim champ, and he was recently upgraded when Crawford made his move to 154. The WBC decided to name Crawford their champion in recess and allow Barrios to be upgraded. Barrios now, really, there's 2 options on the table that people believe, that I believe. One is the Manny Pacquiao fight in the fall, which a lot of people are saying that's a very likely possibility. The WBC has already greenlit this fight to take place if Pacquiao does indeed decide he wants to challenge Barrios. If that doesn't happen, I really believe Barrios and Stanionis are going to attempt to unify belts. I really believe that. So I think either way, Barrios is going to be in a big fight in the second half of the year. Personally, I don't know if he beats a 45-year-old Pacquiao. You know, I think that's like a 50-50 fight, to be honest. But he did return and defend his interim belt against Fabian Maidana. No surprising, he got a lackluster type win there, decision win. But I don't know if he beats Stanionis if he gets him. But we'll see what happens for Barrios in the second half of the year. But it looks like big things either way. Next at number 3 is the reigning undefeated IBF champion Jerome Boots Ennis. He remains number 3 from the beginning of the year. Boots was set to return this weekend, July 13th, against his mandatory challenger and undefeated Cody Crowley, but Crowley had to pull out when he failed the eye exam for the fight. Boots had to scramble, and he would take on he's now going to take on former world title challenger David Avanesian next. Boots is coming in a heavy favorite. I think he's going to waste Avanesian, and I do believe he'll return before the end of the year. If Crowley is not available, or another big name option, which nobody really wants to fight Boots, I think he'll probably face whoever his next highest rated challenger or mandatory is and get them out of the way, but we'll see. I think Boots is going to push for something bigger, but guys got to want to fight him, and nobody else really wants to step up right now. But I think Boots has a major shot by the end of the year being your #1 welterweight in the world, with Crawford and Spence moving up. Speaking of number 2, that is former unified champion Errol Spence Jr. He entered the year number 2. He made it clear that he's probably done with 147, but has not officially scheduled his next fight. But now it looks like him and Sebastian Fundora have agreed in principle to a title fight for October at 154 for Fundora's belts. If that happens, I will take him out of the rankings here at welterweight. And I think that fight is going to happen. So I don't believe Errol Spence returns to the top 10 at welterweight, but I think he's got a solid shot of being in the top 10, top 5, top 3 at 154 by the end of the year. We'll see. And finally, still #1 is the reigning undefeated unified welterweight champion Terrence Bud Crawford. Crawford entered the year with 3 of the 4 titles intact. He vacated the WBC belt, was named champion in recess because he made the decision to move to 154 and fight for the title there. The WBA and the WBO are the 2 titles that he's holding on to, but many people believe that he is going to win the title at 154 and then vacate his 2 belts at welterweight. I agree with that. I think that's what's going to happen. He's going to give up those belts, and we're going to see the regular and interim champions in those divisions be upgraded. And then I think Crawford is going to be done with 147, as he is likely going to be squaring off with Canelo at some point. So I think Crawford's done with welterweight. He'll officially be out of the welterweight division after August. And now we're going to look at the top 5 guys based on their rankings in the governing bodies in the welterweight division. First up is Shakram Giyasov. He is the WBO and WBA's #1 ranked contender right now. So he could sign on to fight Stanionis or Brian Norman once Crawford vacates those belts. Giyasov, I want to say I don't think he returned. He may or may not have returned this year. He did. He fought Pablo Cesar Cano and got a technical decision after 11 rounds with him. I don't really see big things with that kind of stuff, but I really do believe he's probably going to get an opportunity to fight for a world title before the end of the year against either Stanionis or Brian Norman Jr. So be on the lookout for Giyasov to get an opportunity at a world title. Next is Soleimane Sissoko. He's the WBC's #1 ranked contender right now. He has not yet fought this year. He's waiting around to see what happens with Mario Barrios, obviously, but I don't see him getting a crack at Barrios, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets put into an official final eliminator before the end of the year. Next is Karan Chukhajian, who is the IBF's #1 ranked contender somehow. This guy got a victory this year, a decision win against a nobody, but how he's worked himself back in since a 2023 ugly fucking decision loss where he fought for the vacant IBF interim title against Drawn Ennis, how he's become the IBF's #1 contender again is beyond me. I think he's going to fight in an official final eliminator, or he might have won that already against that no-name that he fought, but I don't know how he's in this. I think there is a possibility that he gets a rematch with Boots, if you can believe that, before the end of the year, and I think Boots is going to destroy him, but this guy might get an opportunity. He's ranked #1 in the IBF, so we'll see. Next is Conor Benn. He's the WBC's #2 contender. You could see Sisorsko and Conor Benn fighting each other in a final eliminator. Ben cannot seem to get the Chris Eubank fight or a big fight together, so why not go after a mandatory? He returned this year, fought at a catchweight of 150, beat an undefeated but unknown guy named Pete Dobson by a unanimous decision, shook off the rust. Now come back and get a final eliminator and put yourself in line for a world title next year. Conor Ben's got the talent to be a world champion. Mandate that and go after it, but we'll see. I hope he does, though. I do like Conor Ben. And then finally, you got Japanese knockout artist Jin Sasaki. Sorry. He's the WBO's number 2 contender right now. It depends on, I really think Sasaki could, at the very minimum, get a final eliminator. He could fight the WBO's number 1 ranked contender in Giasov. I really think Giasov could fight against Sasaki here. If Brian Norman gets upgraded to champion, which is likely, he might have to make a mandatory defense and he might have to fight Giasov. So I think Sasaki could fight somebody else, or if Stanionis ends up fighting Giasov because he's the number 1 ranked contender in the WBA as well, I think Sasaki could get the shot at Brian Norman Jr. for the WBO title before the end of the year. So this guy's 17-1-1. And yes, the guy he lost to is a nobody, but in Japan, that doesn't really matter. A lot of dudes lose out there and become champions later. But this dude's 17-1-1 with 16 knockouts. So I'm interested in seeing if he can provide any kind of noise in the relatively laid-back, boring division here. And it's sad to say that because this division has an absolute stud in Jaron Boots Ennis, but nobody really wants to fight him, and guys aren't keen to unify. But I will say this about the welterweight division: it does have some excitement of guys fighting each other and trying to unify, because we're finally coming out of the hangover from Bud and Errol Spence of them not fighting. Has left such a hole in this division of guys not wanting to fight, that now it's going to open the doors. And now with Turki Al-Sheikh doing a lot of fight cards, he might be able to bring the welterweight division back quicker than expected following the Crawford and Errol Spence stuff going on. So, and we also got to see at 140 who's willing to move up to welterweight and make some noise, because there's so many good fighters at 140. So we'll see what goes down, but that's it. That's what I got. That's my 2024 mid-year top 10 on the 147-pound welterweight division. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.